Okay, so some warm-up questions to discuss. We're going to be talking about gross pay and calculating commissions and figuring out how much someone makes an hour and all these types of things. And it just carries on from what we were doing earlier in the week. So question 1, Jennifer owns a company and negotiates 4 contracts worth $8,500, $7,600, $23,000, and $15,500 for the month of June. So she took on 4 contracts. During the month, Jennifer pays employee salaries totaling $7,750, as well as additional expenses of $6,200. We want to take all of that information, along with the fact that she works an average of 62 hours a week, and figure out how much she makes an hour. So the first thing we have to do with this question is we have to figure out her revenues. Okay? That is money that's coming in. That would be the total of her 4 contracts. So I am going to take the 8,500. I'm going to add 7,600. I'll add 23,000. There's no decimal point there. 23,000. And I'll add 15,500. And when I total those up, I should get $8,500 plus 7,600 plus 23,000 plus 15,500. Anyone get an answer? Does it match that one? $54,600. So that's what's coming in for the month. That's not bad for 1 month. She gets to keep it all. I wouldn't say that's not bad. That's unreal. Okay? But she doesn't get to keep it all. We have to figure out her expenses. Okay, this is money going out. What are her expenses? Well, we know that she pays her employees $7,750. And she has additional expenses of $6,200. Now, who knows what those are? It could be like rent, could be repairs on her truck or things like this, her company vehicle, so on. It doesn't matter. She's got total expenses of $13,950. 7750 plus 6200. Check that, 13,950. We want to know her profit, how much money she gets to keep after her employees and her expenses, her bills are paid. What would I do with these 2 numbers? Do I add them, subtract them, multiply them, or divide them? I subtract them. Okay, profit is your revenues, the money coming in, minus your expenses. And this is where people get confused. Like some people think, well, why are you subtracting them? When like we were figuring out gross pay earlier in the week and I was taking the regular pay and I was adding the overtime pay. Well, if the money's staying with the person, you add them together. I added regular pay to overtime pay because the employee got both of those wages or both those amount of monies. But in this case, this is money coming in, this is money going out. She's not keeping this. That $7,750 was going to her employees. This $6,200 was paying off other bills. So I subtract $13,950. And I get a profit of 54600 minus 13,950. I get $40,650. For the month, multiply that by 12, how much she bringing in a year? $487,800, $500,000 bucks. Way to go. Okay, I wish I had your job, Jennifer. So that's how much she's bringing in a month. What do they want me to do with that? What does the question ask me to do? It says, how much does Jennifer make an hour after expenses if she works an average of 62 hours a week? Well, I have $40,650 a month. I want to convert it to an hourly wage. Anyone know what I do first? Why do I divide by 4.33? It's 4.33. That's 4.3 repeating, or 13 over 3. That's weeks, average weeks in a month. The months will cancel. And this will tell me how much money she makes a week. 40650 divided by 4.33. And I get roughly, this is an approximate value, $9,387.99 per week. Now, what do I do with that? That's right. You're going to divide the 387.99 per week. You're going to divide that by 62 hours per week. The weeks will cancel. And how much is she making? 9,387.99 divided by 62. She's making roughly, or approximately, $151.42 per what? Hour. Smokes. Jennifer's making bank. She's making 10 times the minimum wage here in New Brunswick. Everyone cool with that? Question number 1. Do you remember where this number comes from, the 4.33? It's a rounded figure. I don't care for it. It's because there's 52 weeks per year, and there's 12 months per year. So if you're trying to figure out how many weeks there are in a month, you end up with this 52 over 12, which would reduce to 13 over 3. So if you use 13 over 3, that's great. That's 4 1/3. So it's roughly 4.33. That's weeks per month. And the 13 divided by 3 is really 4.3 repeating. And when we've been doing our calculations, we've been just using 4.33. So we're off a little bit. You sure can. Yep. So there's question 1. Jennifer's making $151.42 an hour. Question 2. Eric works for Eddie's Wholesale as a salesman. So Eddie's, we have an Eddie's around here. They sell plumbing and electrical fixtures and products for contractors. Not just for contractors. You could go into Eddie's and buy yourself a new bathtub or a shower or whatever you want. He earns a base salary of $40,000 as well as 15% commission. So 15% commission, that's like an alternative income or an additional income. In this case, it's additional. So he gets 15% of all of his sales plus $40,000. It says Eric's annual salary for 2023 was $73,000. They want to know what his sales were. So first of all, I have to figure out what he made in commission. How would you figure out what his commission is? He's got a base salary of $40,000 and he made $73,000. So if he was only supposed to get, if he only had his annual salary, he'd only get $40,000. How much extra money did he make? $33,000. Do you understand how I would take this number and come up with that figure, $33,000? What would I do with them? I would subtract them. So to get his commission, I'm going to go $73,000 and I'm going to subtract his base salary, $40,000. And you are absolutely right. He made an extra 33. He almost doubled his salary because he was a good salesman. Now, the question doesn't ask what his commission was. If it did, I'd answer $33,000. The question actually asks what his total sales were. So if I want to figure out his sales, this is what I'd need to do.
Excuse the interruption. Just to know for students that see.
So I know that 15% of some number is equal to $33,000. So here's what I'm going to do to find his sales. I'm going to say let X equal his total sales. It's a dollar amount. And I know that 15% of X is equal to how much? $33,000. Wicked. That gives me his commission. Now, what do I do with the 15%? I never leave it as a percentage. I always change it to a what? A decimal. 15 divided by 100 is 0.15. And what did I say of meant? It means to multiply. So do you agree that that means 0.15 times X? And I don't have to use X for sales. I could have used S. Equals 33,000. What would you do to get X by itself? How would you get rid of a times 0.15? I would divide by 0.15. That's right. And whatever you do to the left, you do to the right. And we end up with X on the left and 33,000 divided by 0.15 gives me $220,000. That means having a hard time with the decimal places here today. That means Eric sold $220,000 worth of supplies. Okay? That's great. He did a good job. The more he sells, the more commission he makes. In turn, that would increase his annual salary. Is everyone okay with that? And it wouldn't hurt to write a little sentence after these. You could say that Eric sold $220,000 worth of, we'll just say goods. Eddie's sells plumbing and electrical supplies. And obviously we got the question right. There's the answer down there. Next question. Question number 3, we're talking about your pal Sam works at Cleve's Sporting Goods. All right, Cleve's would be similar to Sport Check. He earns $15.30 an hour and commission of 10% of sales. So it's another question involving commission. So he's getting an hourly rate plus commission. It's additional earnings. Thursday, Sam worked an 8-hour shift and had sales totaling $850. What was Sam's gross pay for the day? Okay, so we want to know how much money Sam made on Thursday. So we're going to do 3 things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out his regular pay. This is where I would take his hourly rate, how much he gets paid an hour, and I'd multiply it by the number of hours he works. So what numbers should I use? $15.30 per hour. And I should multiply that by how many hours? How many hours does he work on Thursday? 8. So that'd be 80 and 40, 120, and 38. So that'd be 240. I should end up with 122.40 if the mental math game's tight. Nailed it. A little flex for the video there, eh, guys? Part 2. Okay, he doesn't just earn $122.40. He also gets 10% of his total sales. So what is 10% of his sales? Do we know what his sales were? What were his sales on that day? 850. So I know that his sales, this number is going to be 850. I know that of means multiply. And I know that 10% as a decimal is, sorry, 10%, percentage is no good to me. I need a decimal like I did in the last question. What's 10% as a decimal? What's 10 divided by 100? Okay, what is 10% of 850? Anyone know that? $85. Nailed it. So he gets this much and this much. Do I subtract them? Like I did in the other examples? Did I go, like I went revenue minus expenses? A lot of you are shaking your head. No, I don't. What do I do with these two numbers? I add them. And what do we call this? His regular pay plus his commission. I should have called this commission. It's his gross pay. That's how much Sam earns. I suppose Sam could be a she too. All right. 122.40 plus 85 straight up. That gives me 40 cents. 7. This is a 207. 207.40. Not a bad day's work for Sam at Cleves Sporting. You okay with that? Last question, and then you guys can use the rest of the period to work on the worksheet. See the pencils starting to drop. We'll move to question 4. Hannah works at the payroll center where she works a 40-hour work week. If Hannah's annual salary for the year is $81,120, what is her hourly pay? Okay. How would you do part A? What am I going to do with Hannah's annual pay? That's what she gets paid for a year. I want to turn it into a weekly pay. And then I can go to hourly pay. Anyone know how many weeks there are in a year? 52. Nailed it. 52 weeks per year. The years are going to cancel. What's 81,120 divided by 52? $1,560. That's how much she'd get paid what? Per week. What's step 2? What do I do with the $1,560 per week? I divide it by what? The hours. I divide it by 40 hours per week. And that gets rid of the weeks. And it leaves an amount per hour. 1,560 divided by 40. And I got $39. per hour. Please put your units in when you're doing these. Like, tell me it's money and tell me it's per hour. And then you could write a little sentence, Hannah makes $39 an hour. Part B, Nate Dogg makes an annual salary of $101,920. If Nate works an average of 70 hours every 2 weeks, how much does he average per hour? Okay. So basically, Hannah's getting paid weekly, so she would get 52 checks in a year. Nate Dogg's getting paid every 2 weeks. What do we call that frequency? Bi-weekly. How often or how many checks does Nate make? 26. So same style of question, only I'm going from 101,920 per year. What should I divide by? Not 52 weeks, not 52 checks. 26. All right. And 101,920 divided by 26, that leaves 3,920. And that's every 2 weeks, would say. So this is 2 weeks per year. The years would cancel. That's how much he gets paid every 2 weeks. Now, step 2. How many hours does he work every 2 weeks? 70. So I have to go 3,920. That's what he gets paid every 2 weeks. And I'm going to divide that by 70 hours every 2 weeks. Those would cancel. What's 3,920 divided by 70? $56 per hour. Now, if you did go weeks, like if you did go 101,920 divided by 52 weeks a year, I get 1960. So like this is the answer, but some people might solve that like so. Do it like I did the first question, 52 weeks per year. Those cancel, and that gives me 1960 every week. And then you would go 1960 per week, and you'd only divide that by how much? If they work 70 hours in 2 weeks, yeah, you'd work 35 hours in 1 week. Those would cancel. What's 1960 divided by 35? Any guesses? 56. So it might make more sense for you to do it that way because this kind of looks sloppy. The answer is $56 an hour. Either way you cut it. Okay, that's it for today. You guys can work on the review sheet.